Let's put on our GM hats and take a look at free agency through the lens of what James and I would do if we were running things for the Cincinnati Bengals.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lisco. He's your host, James Rapine. Today, we take a dive into free agency and talk about things we would do if we were running things for the Cincinnati Bengals and why, in some cases, they are things we don't believe the Bengals will do. If you're new to the show, you can subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast and become an everydayer. Make us your first listen. We appreciate all of you who do those things. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can save $20 off your first purchase of tickets with the Game Time app using promo code Locked On. And James, we'll do the What Will They Do free agency episode as our last episode before the free agency period opens next week. That'll be coming out on Sunday for all of you regulars out there, a little bit earlier than normal. But today, the What Will We Do and why it will be different from what they will do will be part of the conversation. But always a fun time of year.
Did you see my dance at the beginning of the show, Jake?
Yeah.
It's back, baby. The everydayers know it. The dance is back. Free agency is almost here. And that means it's time to get dancing again. And it's March. So it kind of fits the college basketball phrase that everyone's going to be talking about in a few weeks with the tournament. But yes, free agency is here. It's a beautiful thing. Let's fix the Bengals. Let's go get a ring. Jake, let's go. Let's go get a ring.
It's really difficult this year, in my opinion, compared to the last couple of years. I've at least had some optimism heading into the last few free agency periods that has made it easy to find a best case scenario. You look at the past few years of us doing this episode where we're doing the What Would We Do, because we've done this for a few years now. And I've been able to put together realistic targets that I would be pretty happy to see land on the Cincinnati Bengals this year. Man, is it tough. And this is going to be more of an issue when we do the What Would They Do episode and try to figure out where the sweet spot is for them. Just with the age of the free agency class, where the strength is in the free agency class and all those things. But today is not the What Will They Do, it's the What Will We Do. And we'll try to find the best path forward. But I do think it's hard this year, James. I truly do think it's hard because of the alignment of the free agency class strengths versus the Bengals needs.
No doubt, because here's where it's deep, like deep. Safety and running back. Okay. Well, the Bengals have invested, whether it's money right now, currently in Joe Mixon or in Nick Scott, which does matter, and first and third round picks and fifth rounder and Tyson Anderson. They've invested in those spots and in where they need and want to invest the most capital. Not that they don't want to address both of those spots. Those are deep. They want to throw money at a 25-year-old defensive tackle. It's going to be a game wrecker. They want to find the next DJ Reader, and there just isn't. Right? They want to find the Trey Hendrickson of right tackle or the insert whatever plug-in starter that you could find at right tackle. And there's not many of them that fit what they look for, which is second contract, mid-20s, ascending versus around our age. If you're around the Locked On Bengals podcaster age, the Bengals hate you. They may hate us, I don't know, but they hate you. They don't want you right now. This is not your time of year. And so I think the interesting part of this is how much will they break from it? Will they not? Because there are some guys that will fill it. But for me, if I'm them, and this is what we do, I would be okay breaking it a little bit because they should be in win now mode, especially with franchise, with T. Higgins on the franchise tag, with Joe Burrow. This is the last year before you see those really big cap hits start to kick in some, and they can move money around and things like that. But I wouldn't be worried about signing a 30-year-old defensive tackle or a 29-year-old right tackle. I'd be okay with it because they're trying to win in 2024, and that's what they might have to do so.
That said, and I agree, I'm going to start with a guy that I think does fit what the Bengals have done in years past, in a
Yeah.
few ways, in a few key ways, and that's Mike Nwenu. We've talked about him a ton on this show. 26,
Yep.
has at least 4 years left before he hits that age 30 year where the Bengals don't want you after that, and has played numerous offensive line positions at a high level for the New England Patriots.
Mhm.
I think that the money that is projected for him, $14.5 million, is fairly representative of the level of play you would get. I don't think this is a massive upgrade over Jonah Williams or anything like that. But what it does give you is a future right guard if you need it. If Alex Kappa doesn't see the last year of his deal, for example, which is possible, not probable or anything like that. But if Kappa has a rocky year or is falling off toward the end of the year, or if something happens there, you have Nwenu for a few years after that, and we know that he's played right guard at a high level in the NFL. It also gives you an option if you draft a tackle in the first round and Cordell Volson doesn't take the leap, the steps they're expecting after seeing the way that he finished the season in 2023. It gives you a potential left guard option as well. It gives you a lot of versatility for a number of positions on that offensive line. And for that reason, to me, it makes sense. He's a great bridge option that gives you potential upside at a guard position in the future if you do hit on a first round right tackle, and he hits the age mark. The only thing that makes me hesitate and say the Bengals wouldn't do this, and where I'm more comfortable with it with that than perhaps they are, is do they see him as a tackle? And if they
Mhm.
don't, and they only see him as a guard, there's no way they're going out and spending $14.5 million on a guard. Their
Sure.
their ceiling there is probably like 8.5 on a year they need a guard.
I want to be very clear here. I would be really excited if they signed Mike Nwenu. I would. I think my strategy, though, would be, and this is where I would break it. I would be willing to spend more on some of these defensive tackles, which we can get into. But I do think you were wise to start with right tackle because to me, there are less guys there. And so you need to secure one pretty early. And so I would target Jermaine Illuminor basically from the jump for a few reasons. One, I think he has the same versatility. He's played right tackle the past couple of years. Is a right tackle. I don't think there's the debate there, even though he can kick inside or he could play left tackle if you wanted him to. I think he truly is a right tackle. There won't be the debate there where some in the building, like if you make Mike Nwenu the highest paid, and he very well could be at that number, he might beat out Jonah Williams. Those are the two. But the highest paid right tackle in this free agency period or offensive tackle in this free agency period, are there going to be some in the building from the jump that think he's a guard? I think that is a real element. And so what would we do? It is debatable, right? We would plug him in at right tackle and leave him there. I get that. Or we would just kick him inside and be okay paying him that. I get it. I also think that realistically, Jermaine Illuminor is the one that you could prioritize. Sign him 2 years. I don't think you need to do 1 year. I think you could go 2 years because he won't command so much money to where
Mhm.
you don't feel comfortable with him as your swing tackle or your swing tackle and guard. And so I envision my ideal scenario would be adding the future starting right tackle in the draft in rounds 1 or 2. Illuminor is there if that guy isn't ready to go right away. And then next year, he might be your backup tackle at both spots and your backup guard at both spots. You never know. He might
Yeah.
be able to do all of the above.
You're much more expensive and hopefully better Cody Ford, who was their first off the bench at a number
Yeah.
of positions in 2023. And the difference there between Illuminor and Nwenu is primarily money, right? There's a couple of years difference in age as well, which is where you can see perhaps the Bengals shying away from Illuminor at age 29, although he doesn't have a ton of wear because he didn't really start playing a ton until the last couple of years. Coming into the league, of course, as a fifth round pick with the Ravens way back in 2017 and getting his breakout with the Raiders in 2022. You save a lot of money there, though, and I'm curious to see where you're going to go spend that money. I have some ideas, perhaps, of where you would like to allocate that money, but that's one of my challenges, James, is finding where they're going to spend the money because I think they will, and we just have to find the places that we would put it and that they would put it. We'll continue spending the Bengals money coming up next.
Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, that you can still have an IRA. Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research, investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. The 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. You must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years, and the 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA is available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer.
Where are we going next, James? You got some money to spend. I spent a little bit more than you.
You spent a little bit more than me, and I will not be mad at that. I think both of us would be fine with either of those guys playing right tackle. And let's get to the other tackle.
Who's your next choice? Just while we're on the topic, let's give our next option. Is it Tyron Smith? Are you in the Tyron Smith sweepstakes?
Hell yeah. But yeah. I've been pounding that drum, and Brad mentioned it on the show yesterday, but it wasn't just Brad. Someone reached out to me privately and was like, hey, he's not going to play right tackle. So I Tyron Smith would have been my guy, but I just know. Yeah. And so if I know the answer, I don't want to just lie to our listeners and make it sound like he's available, because he's not. And he's not going to play right tackle. It sounds like he could stay in the in the NFC though, which is interesting. Good. We'll see if that happens, because I know everyone's talking about the Chiefs, but it sounds like he could stay in the NFC.
Let's not give the Chiefs a good tackle. Let's keep a weakness on that offense.
They lost their best one with Orlando. Ooh, they did. That was a dumb move by them.
I think that's true.
And they still won. Good God. Anyways,
what about Trent Brown or Mekhi Becton? Like, who's your next guy if you're making the choice?
Sure, Trent Brown is fine. I think you meet with him much like a Mekhi Becton. It depends on what you want. To me, if you prioritize Mekhi and you think he has a ceiling that's untapped, I would go after him. I think he can be your swing tackle. I think the relationship with Frank Pollock matters, even though social media hates Frank. He got a lot out of Mekhi's first year, his best season. And so could Mekhi Becton be the guy? I certainly think so, and he could rebuild his career. And that's, spoiler, might be who comes up a few days from now when we make our Bengals free agency predictions. Maybe not. Maybe it'll change between now and then, but that's where I'm leaning right now.
I wish that Charles Leno had ever played right tackle in his long career. He's
retiring.
Oh, is he? Okay.
He posted on social media. Like, I think his wife did. That's why I haven't even.
He's a career left tackle anyway. Like, literally, I think every single snap in his career is a left tackle snap. Chukwuma Okorafor from the Steelers is another name that we'll probably have to discuss. And then what would they do?
They could sign him now.
They could. But they might want to talk to some of these unrestricted free agents instead of just to cut guys before them. But let's move on. Sorry. I just wanted to talk about the next options to tackle a little bit, just to make sure we were exhaustive. Where are you going next?
I think we got to go defensive line. Yeah. And to me, T.R. Tart is a no-brainer. I mean, 27 years old, someone that they've expressed interest in the past. It makes a lot of sense in a defensive line class that has a lot of late 20s, early 30s. Tart, to me, is someone that they could target and add, and I expect them to. I think that's someone that they add pretty early in the process next week. And it's someone I would add too, just to be clear.
The what would we do, what would they do crossover
is interesting.
Has occurred. He makes way too much sense. He is going to be 27? He's 27 and a half. He's right in our tier 3 of free agents, which is where the Bengals typically sign guys. Spoiler, we're going to put out our list, our free agent tier list pretty soon. Mm-hmm. Plays nose tackle, has a little bit of versatility as far as where he can align. on the
Mhm.
defensive line, and he won't break the bank. I think that if there were a DJ Reader type available this year, they would go after the DJ Reader 2.0.
Yep. Agreed.
But there isn't. That guy just doesn't exist. And it's not Christian Wilkins because he's a couple years older and he's going to cost significantly more. That market, the top end of that defensive tackle market, has also popped off a little bit. And he's not really seen as a nose tackle. Nose tackles still get paid a little bit less. I would supplement that if I could by also trying to figure out a way to bring DJ Reader back.
Oh,
That would be my thought. And
no doubt.
that's hoping that, that's assuming that he's going to be healthy relatively early in the season. We don't know. It sounds like there's potentially some good news there. We talked to Brad about that yesterday. Brad Spielberger from PFF. We did that whole episode on studying the market yesterday. You can go check that out. But if you get Tart and Reader, you're feeling, I think, a lot better about the interior defensive line. There is risk with Tart, with the way that he went out in Tennessee and the work ethic concerns. But and I tweeted this to somebody on Twitter. We don't know the story there. We know that he didn't want to play there. He wasn't great in Houston when they put the claim in, but the Bengals put a claim in and he fits their criteria. Like that
Yeah.
is the most obvious on paper connection or prediction you can make, I think, for an external free agent for this team this year.
There's one more that I'll get to that I would do as well. We'll see the crossover coming up in a bit, potentially, or on our next show at least. But here's where I spend the money, because to me, Tart, Reader, and then you go get someone else. Like I'm not waiting. I look at this class, this draft class. Everyone's on Johnny Newton. I think the NFL is lower on Johnny Newton than draft analysts out there. I don't think he's going to be off the board in the first 18 picks. Could change. Might be dead wrong after the Illinois Pro Day. Who the hell knows? But as of now. So to me, it's like, all right, well, who else on the roster do they have that I believe in? So I would try to get Reader, Tier Tart, and then they've expressed interest in Sheldon Rankins in the past. Maybe it's Rankins. Maybe it's Maurice Hurst, who different players, right?
Hurst
in different
is absolutely on my list.
Different salaries. And so I agree with you. I think that's where you go, is you get a Hurst who can complement. He's not going to break the bank. You have someone in Reader who's going to make the most out of the three. And then you also get Tier Tart. I think those are the three. You have Reader, you have Tart, you have Hurst, and you could still draft someone if you want to. It's not like it's preventing you from doing that. Those are the three that stand out the most to me. I know a lot of people are in on Javon Kinlaw. You may mention Daquan Jones. I could be interesting there. Shelby Harris is interesting. Raekwon Davis is someone Brad mentioned. That's fine too, but give me two. You need two external, even with Reader. That's what I would do. And so how do they figure out, make the pieces fit? How does BJ Hill fit? I'm not sure. But if you have four veterans going into the draft, it feel much better. So BJ Hill, re-sign DJ, add two externals.
Well, look at what the Browns did.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, there's Tomlinson at the high end, but then they had some mid-range guys to go along with that. And I'm asking the Bengals to do roughly the same thing. And maybe DJ Reader is the high end of that, and you're banking. And perhaps this is a fool's errand, but the Bengals will know more about the health than we will, just like they know more about Tier Tart's cultural fit than we will as a public. And they could get it wrong, obviously, but those are some things that would make sense for them to do to rebuild after it was really bad for them last year. Shelby Harris, so I mean, if they don't like Maurice Hurst, who they've passed on in the past because he can't stay healthy or whatever it is, Shelby Harris continues to play solid ball as a rotational interior defensive lineman. The guy's just been a rock, and he's going to be 33 this year, but on a 1-year deal. Brad's got him projected at $3 million. Like, sign me up. 450 snaps of solid rotational interior defensive lineman play. It's going to be way better than what they had there last year. At least I think it should be.
And to me, this is the year. What would we do? Just overall, I would be open to those 1-year veteran deals.
Yep.
Right. That aren't going to break you cap wise, that aren't going to, I think they're going to have to start to swim in those water some this year and moving forward. That's just part of being a contender. And that's how you get that extra piece that could put you over the top.
Yeah. And we'll wrap up though. What would we do with a few more positions that we have to hit coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. So maybe there's a concert this summer that you want to go to. Maybe you're already looking ahead. Reds games, opening day tickets. Game Time is going to have you covered. And of course, when NFL season gets here, Game Time is the place to go. They have all-in prices that show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Bam, bam, you get your tickets. And all you have to do is go to Game Time today. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
So we've addressed the trenches. We need some tight ends. We have none.
You ready? I'm ready. I'm ready for this one.
Go tight end.
Every day, everydayers. Where are you spending your money? Where are you spending your money? You know what? I look at it. I'm open to it now, Jake, because I don't know where they're going to spend it. And I damn sure I'm not spending it on a big money safety because that guy left last year. So no offense. I don't know where else to go. Here are the two. Here are the two that I would sign. It's either Noah Fant or Saquon Barkley. That's it. Those are the two guys. There aren't other tight ends that are on Fant's level for a bunch of reasons, and I get it. And despite what a lot of people are saying about some of these other backs, Saquon Barkley is clearly the best free agent running back available and would be even if the Bengals released Joe Mixon. So pick one. I would pick tight end. One, it's going to cost less. Two, you play with multiple tight ends. Usually, I think the way the Bengals want to play, they want to play with multiple tight ends on the same play more, so more 12 personnel. So getting Noah Fant would make that easier. I would be open to the idea of Noah Fant. How about this for a 180? How about this for a 180?
Well, once you have to find a way to spend the money, when you rule out some of the guys that we don't think they're going to spend the money on, you got to find a place to spend the money. And he does fit in a number of ways. Like he fits the age, the ascending player criteria. He just doesn't fit a position where they've wanted to spend money lately. And that's why it is a bit of a leap to say they would go give if you count Dalton Schultz, second biggest projected free agent contract to a tight end this year to Noah Fant. And there is risk there too. He hasn't quite lived up to the first round pedigree, but he's just 26. He's still very young. And we talk about with tight ends all the time. Sometimes it takes until that second contract for that to hit. And he has all the athleticism that suggests that it could break out at any year. It's just, will he be Jermaine Gresham? You know, that's the balancing act.
It's just the Uzama deal too. I mean, it may be a little bit more, but it's not crazy. And that's why it's like, okay, is it worth trying? How much would that deal really get in the way of other things? And based on what we've done, I don't think it would. Now, I would say the same thing about Saquon. Just say, splurge somewhere. And so if you can't get Tyron Smith, you're not going to be able to get Christian Wilkins, which I think we would all be in. I would be in on it if they could. I just don't think it's realistic. I just don't think it's remotely possible. So that's why it's not in what I would do, because it's got to be at least remotely possible. But go somewhere. And so those are the two guys that I would be eyeing, because I think that they could splurge there and it really not impact them much in future years just because of where the cap is going to go.
And he is represented by David Mulligetta's agency, but not David Mulligetta. He is represented by Kyle McCarthy, so a different agent for anyone who's out there looking at agents and isolating David Mulligetta clients.
Can I give you one more thing about that?
David
As of
Mulligetta?
now, it's still just Jesse Bates. Like, I know there's this aura around it.
Sure.
And it might end up being T. Higgins too.
It's likely going to end up being T. Higgins too.
Sure. But okay, does that mean that they don't get something done with Justin Simmons at safety? I don't know. I don't think so, because he's 31 and the safety market's flooded. But I don't want to just rule out every David Mulligetta client from here until forever, because at some point they will have to get one done. And they know that, and he knows that, I'm sure.
I mean, does he know that? I don't think he cares. He's happy to let his guys go sign
Like
elsewhere.
isn't Kevin Byard represented by Mulligetta?
There are some lower.
And so like the asks there, it can't be the same.
Yeah,
It's different
no.
when you have these high-end guys. I get it, but it can't be the same. At some point it drops. Right? It just
I
does.
am inclined to agree, but as we've seen around the NFL, there's this increasing push for more guarantees.
Who
And
would you sign, Saquon or Noah Fant, if you could pick one?
I am still averse to spending money at running back. And honestly, if I was going to spend money at running back, and this is perhaps a hot take, I would prefer Derrick Henry.
Oh, why? Whoa.
I just think he's a freak. I think he's more of a freak. I think that he has the size speed combo, and I mean, I like Saquon too and what he can do, but Derrick Henry's done it longer. At any point with running back, the wheels could come off, but Henry is just one of those guys that seems to be built different. Like we thought the wheels were coming off for him, and then he just had one of the best seasons he's had.
Yeah.
And he's not like you're asking him to play a full snap load. I think he costs a little bit less because of his age. He still has a long speed. I don't know.
So are you signing Derrick Henry and Noah Fant?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. So that's what you would do.
I'm not signing a running back. No. But I would stick on Noah Fant, and I would probably also go Will Dissly or Sample. I think they're very similar players, but Sample's one you're more familiar with. Would bring Sample back for something in the $2 to $3 million range, hopefully. Would bring Hudson back for league minimum, and if he doesn't want it, I would go a different direction and have another league minimum veteran tight end in the building as well.
Yeah, I would. And I'm not. To me, I think you make a call maybe on Zach Moss, but to me, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just the one that's going to overlap next show as well. That's who I would sign. I'm in on him. 1.5 million, 1-year deal, something like that.
And Moss is a good shout. If I were to do a running back, Moss has been the guy for me all along. Every time I look at the free agency class from a skill set perspective, a guy that can get you the 5 yards, a guy that can pass block for you, is going to be versatile, has the age that they're looking for at 26 years old. Zach Moss has been the standout for me if they do go cheaper at running back every step of the way. Deontay Foreman is another one, actually, in that bucket.
Totally get it. And it's unique where I think they could go a bunch of different ways at running back, but there are so many running backs, ladies and gentlemen, so many. That's part of the Bengals have to take it into consideration when they're evaluating what they're spending there and all of those things. And I do think they want to get cheaper. I certainly want to get cheaper there. That's where it is. I agree with you. So I would spend on Noah Fant. I would spend on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which isn't really spending.
No.
And they probably still have some money left over, and that's where safety gets really interesting because there's a ton of safeties. I mean, there's a ton. I do think Geno Stone, who's probably the most mentioned one, why wouldn't he go to Seattle? They cut 2 safeties this week. I feel like he's already Seattle bound. The deal might be done.
Yeah. I think you're competing with Seattle for Stone, but if he is available, I think you have to be pretty smart to play in a Mike McDonald defense. And I think that what the Bengals are looking for out of whatever safety they sign is a guy who can vocally communicate and a guy who's intelligent. That's what points me actually towards some of the veterans that have been released. And I don't know if the Bengals would break the mold here, but you know, the Kevin Byards, the Micah Hydes, the Jordan Poyers, the
Poyer baby
guys are ones that, or even Quandre Diggs, the older guys in the free agent market are guys that it wouldn't shock me to see the Bengals break the mold here because of what they're looking for. But for the younger guys, Darnell Savage is the one that probably stands out the most to me. Deshaun Elliott's another one from an age and money perspective that would fit, as is Jordan Whitehead. I think that those would be the primary guys outside of Geno Stone. I would all but rule out CJ Gardner-Johnson, but not for any particular reason. That's just a vibes thing. And I wonder if they'd just be too scared off of ex-Rams safeties to even think about Jordan Fuller.
Yeah, I don't know there. I think he's interesting. What do you think about Mike Edwards?
Sure. That'd be the cheap option. That would be not too dissimilar to me to the Nick Scott option, except he's probably a little bit better.
I think they're all cheap options. Like, I think Savage is a cheap option. I think Edwards. This is what they needed last year when they were looking at Nick Scott. This is also why the safety market is why, and I like Nick. And there, you could have, in some years, you could have made the argument, you're not paying him a lot. At least saving a couple $1 million in cap space. Like, he's going to be certainly more comfortable this year. Just keep him. You can't keep him. It's
There's
too
so many
flooded.
safeties.
There's
like
so many.
20 starting caliber safeties, and not every team needs one. I think there's going to be a real musical chairs for these safeties trying to find starting jobs, and some of them aren't going to get them.
Jordan Fuller is interesting, but a lot of these guys, like, if you can get a guy on a 2-year deal for under $5 million AAV, why wouldn't you do it? Because that doesn't mean you have to start that guy. You can, but I think that's where I'm at safety. I'm fine with them adding one because I get it. You want to raise the floor. You don't want to have what you had last year where it's just scary. I also don't think that they should go break the bank for a safety that isn't going to be worth what you're trying to pay him. And Antoine Winfield Jr. is tagged. Kyle Duggar is on the transition tag. So who's the top guy? Cameron Curl?
McKinney, probably, for what they're looking for.
McKinney, also represented by David Mulligan.
Luckily,
dum. Will they get it done? Find out next week.
They just go give the Jesse Bates deal to Xavier McKinney. Hard to see that happening, but I think
that would be Bengals. If you do that, I'm ripping you. That's awful. And Xavier's fine.
McKinney was great last year, but just do it with the guy that you already have, who knows your defense and is good. Anyway, luckily there's a billion safeties that are free agents, like we've discussed, and they should be able to get one. They shouldn't have to break the bank. I think the Taylor Rapp deal is a terrible deal, by the way, that Buffalo did before free agency even opened. I think that's a significant
who would you rather
overpay.
Have, Jordan Poyer or Taylor Rapp? Because I would rather have Poyer.
It's a money thing. It's a money thing, but I think the initial report on Rapp's contract is like $2 million more per year than I would pay him anyway. And we'll see what the actual numbers are. As always in free agency, the initial numbers are probably higher than the real contract. But did we hit all the positions? We didn't sign a wide receiver. You don't want to sign a wide receiver?
Are we sure there is? I mean, I always want to talk about wide receiver. So let's go to wide receiver.
You want to go sign Noah Brown real quick after he torched the Bengals?
I'm open to Noah Brown. I think Kendrick Bourne is kind of interesting.
Sure. I don't actually have any thoughts at receiver.
DJ Chark is interesting. I do. I always have thoughts at wide receiver. But going down the list of like below what you just said with Noah Brown, and it gets really shallow really quickly. I probably wouldn't sign a receiver outside of those guys.
I would.
You may want your boy Curtis Samuel.
No, I'm off it. I've had enough years of separation. Yeah, I couldn't quit him for a long time. But Noah Brown will be my budget target, and he torched the Bengals, so they know.
I would be in on some of these guys if T didn't get tagged, but like T's here, and so like why would I mention Calvin Ridley? Like it just doesn't make sense. So.
I wouldn't even want him, to be honest. There are also some guards that I might be interested in if it were me. Like I would be looking for competition. Like I would sign Kevin Zeitler, but I think we're out of money anyway. So maybe that's it.
I went cheap at running back.
You might have money left. I don't know if I do. Because
you spent a little money. You spent a little money.
Well, you got to go extend Evan McPherson. You got to see if Jamar Chase wants to do his extension this year, which he doesn't because he wants to wait for Justin Jefferson's deal. But you got to at least see.
Yeah, I don't know. These guards are weird too. Zeitler's the one. Zeitler's the one. I agree with you. But you have Kappa. So what are you doing?
Yeah, if one of those guys played left guard, it'd be easier. Damian Lewis, bring back Joe Burrow's guard. Lloyd Cushenberry must also be a free agent then, is he? Weren't they the same
cornerback wise, you signing Christian one or you just wait until the draft? Kristen Fulton is your guy.
Yeah.
Not Sean Murphy Bunting. Interesting.
I'm more familiar with Fulton. He's on my shadow team. I liked him coming out of the draft, and that's
cheap and he's young.
First round reclamation project of Bengals days of the Marvin Lewis era.
Jeff Okudah.
At least
25.
Fulton has showed. I guess Okudah flashed it briefly.
He did.
But
Rocky Sin.
Rock Ya-Sin's fine. I would do that too. That's in the
Okay.
range I'm looking at corner.
Yep. There you go. All right. So Noah Fant, you are a Bengal.
Gosh.
What a
What
heel
did we even
turn.
do? Man. Free agency's tough this year. That's what I'm saying. They got to nail this draft. They got to prove us wrong in free agency and find the guys we don't see coming the way they did in 21, the way they did with Trey Hendrickson. They got to surprise us the way they did with DJ Reader. They got to find the value. That's why the safety market is something we're going to continue to talk about when we do the what will they do, because that's where there's a glut in the market. And that seems to be somewhere they would try to go. They try to find these inefficiencies sometimes and find the value. And they got to do it this year. And they got to get it right. But that's going to do it. We're out of money. We're out of time here on the Locked On Bengals podcast. We didn't find our right tackle at Walmart, unfortunately, so we're out of money. Until next time when we do the What Will They Do episode, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.